I am joined by Allie, writer, poet, and 3 times best-selling author, whose work has touched millions of people through its honesty, softness, and emotional depth. Her writing feels less like something you simply read, and more like something you experience in the body. In a world that constantly asks us to move faster, perform more, and harden ourselves to survive, Allie's words offer something radically different. Presence, tenderness, reflection, and permission to feel. In this conversation, we explore the power of storytelling, the relationship between creativity and embodiment, the role of silence in the creative process, and what it means to remain soft in a loud world. We also speak about writing as a form of healing, the invisible parts of becoming another, and the connection between breath, the nervous system, and creative expression. This episode feels like an exhale. So wherever you're listening from, I invite you to slow down, settle into this moment, and enjoy this beautiful conversation with Allie. How long does it take you to write a book? And we can actually take the example of your latest book, which is a poem book. You can actually talk to us a little bit more about the process of this book especially, but how long did it take you to write all those poems? How many pages? How many poems?
I didn't want to write another poetry book until I was like older and wrinkled and just, I wanted to just come out like Mary Oliver and be like, here's my whole life. And then this editor from HarperCollins reached out and was like, hey, we'd like your next poetry book. And I thought it was fake. Like, I didn't think it was a real email. So I was like, meh, I'm writing fiction. And she reached out a few more times and we connected. And I was like, okay, well, let me see how many poems I have. And I had about 100. So I submitted those. And then my manager called me and said, where's the other half of the book? They need 200. And I was like, I don't have 200. So I went and I found an extra like 13 poems in my notes app, but they could only extend my deadline 24 days. So I had to write 86 poems in 24 days. So the first 113 took me 3 years to write. And the last 86 took 24 days.
That's very interesting to know. Because again, we cannot rush creativity, we cannot rush inspiration, especially when we're writing poems, because it's so connected to you, to emotions, and that can be really overwhelming. I'm wondering how or if there is a connection between your yoga practice and movement in general and your writing process. Do you use yoga as a tool to help you manage those moments in your life, and how is it helping you?
I have a very dreamlike nature in the sense that it's a lot easier for me to live in my imagination than it is to live in reality. And so I think part of why I've loved yoga for so long is it helps me be okay with being here. And the way that connects to my writing practice is the writing is really only good when I'm in my body. Because when I'm writing from that disassociative place, it just doesn't land. It's resonance. It's people feel the place that we create from. And if I'm not in my heart and I'm not in my body and I'm not writing from that human place, who cares? It doesn't matter. No one connects to it, So I think those are all vehicles of just how can I be in reality without finding ways to cope with it.
Yeah, that's beautiful, and that's true. The yoga practice is so similar to that writing process, and that process that we were talking about earlier about being connected to your inner truth by actually being disconnected from the outer world and being in that state of full presence. Have movement or actually stillness ever changed what you were able to write?
Absolutely, because the more I move, the more grounded I am, the more access I have to my emotions. And therefore, that changes the range of how complex and deep my characters can be. It changes the range of how much I can empathize with other people and write poems that have a more rounded understanding versus just like fixating on my one small lens. So writing and embodiment are kind of inseparable for me. They have to coexist.
And I'd be curious to ask you if movement or your yoga practice actually helps you to slow down the thoughts, slow down the ideas, or actually creates more inspiration, more ideas. Because I catch myself and I love that process of when I'm moving and when I'm disconnected from the outer world, when I switch off my phone, I have so many ideas, so many good thoughts coming up, and I always have my journal next to me and I write them down. It's very raw, it's the draft, but I'm like, at the end of my practice, I'm like, I did not just move my body, I also moved everything that was within, and I feel like I'm coming up to start my days with so many more ideas, so many like projects that can arise from that practice, which I actually used as a meditative tool to get back to myself.
Ironically, I can't think and create at the same time. So when I'm writing, I'm not thinking at all. And if I want a scene to come to me, I can't be thinking at all. And so my favorite thing to do in the evening is light all my candles, no pun intended, and do a yin practice, something that really slows me down. I find yin to be a lot harder because when you're not doing breath to movement and you're just stuck in a pose, uncomfortable for what feels like an eternity, it's really difficult because I start to feel what's actually under the hood. Um, and at the same time, doing that every day keeps it from building up, where I'm not all of a sudden hit by this tidal wave of everything I've been avoiding. It's like I'm just letting it out a little bit at a time. And in that process of letting out, I'm also letting in, like you said, those beautiful ideas and imaginings.
What does yoga and movement in general teach you about yourself and also about words and your language in general?
There are very few things that actually reveal a person, and words are the least of them. But when you watch the way someone holds themselves, the way that they walk, their body language, you can really see them, especially if you get to see them dance or practice yoga. It's like so much of their essence is revealed in that, way more than words. So to me, the body is kind of the most beautiful poem that I'll ever write.
If you were to give an advice to someone coming to you and be like, Ellie, I don't manage to connect to my muse, I don't manage to be creative, what would be your number one advice to that person?
Art in this day and age has become really risk averse because of cancel culture and because of kind of having to reframe into digestible algorithm friendly content. And so I would say just live in a way that is bold for you. And that's going to look different for everyone. Let's say you're like me and you're naturally shy, then maybe you living in a bold way is going out and meeting people and greeting the unknown and having these brave new experiences. Let's say you're someone who needs novelty to feel okay inside or loves being on stage. Maybe sitting in a cabin in the woods by yourself is the bold and brave thing to do for you. But once you break out of your patterns and your daily rhythms, it's kind of almost impossible not to find that inspirational pulse again.
It takes us to that concept of comfort zone and discomfort, and actually finding more inspiration through discomfort because you're not in your routines, you're not in what you know, you're actually facing something that is completely new. And I strongly believe that when something is new, there is something so curious and wide to explore. And that's where creativity starts.
Yeah, it's what I said about comfort and convenience. It's so easy to just create an environment in which we never have to be uncomfortable. Um, and I'm never more disconnected from myself when I'm in that bubble for too long.
I have a lot of my students who are very scared of journaling. It's either being scared or, not really knowing what to do with that blank page. What would you want them to hear? What would you like to tell them in order to be okay with a blank page and with the words that are going to come out?
I always start with flow writing, and you just set a timer for 5 to 10 minutes. And the only rule is you can't stop moving your pen. So even if you're saying, wow, I'm tired today, the sky is cloudy, I don't know why I'm writing, the point is just to keep going, because then again, that judgmental part of your mind falls asleep and you start to see what bubbles up under the surface. And I know it can be frightening to write because inevitably, when we're creating, we have to swim in those waters that we fear to tread. But that is where the best art is. When I'm writing what feels safe and comfortable, I'm bored. And when I'm writing what I'm afraid to write, it's magical because I'm walking that edge of beauty and terror and aliveness. And then I come out the other side and realize that I didn't die from it. And so I feel a sense of confidence. And I think confidence comes from doing the things that you're afraid to do.
Do you feel emotionally drained after you wrote a poem or a few pages of your book? Because I feel like the way you're explaining this, it's basically every word, every thought is associated to an emotion, something that is very intense. How do you feel after you wrote?
It's really a practice of turning pain into beauty. And so I don't want to use the word alchemy because it's so overused, but that is what it feels like. It doesn't feel like I'm demanding something of myself or exposing something or running myself to the ground. It feels like I'm taking what happened and then all of a sudden it starts to have this creative process where it becomes something that is what it once was, but also something new, if that makes sense.
How do you hope that people leaves with your words and with your poems and books?
I hope they feel just a little bit more permission to be themselves. That's all.
Do you have some poems or pages or even maybe a full book, I don't know, that you've never released or don't even have the intention to release it ever? Like, I don't know, maybe it's your own journal or something, because we're talking about that boundary or that boundary between what's intimate and what you're allowing people to see of you.
Yeah, it's important to make sure that not everything I'm writing is for social media. And my journal will never be shared. Like that is totally sacred to me. And it's actually some of my favorite writing because of course it's the most honest. I'm not writing it for anyone. Um, and the books that I write, it feels like it's mine for long enough, you know? They get to be mine for a couple of years and then it's like, yeah, I'm ready to let this go now. And so I don't have to hold on to it forever.
If you were to write something like a book or again a poetry book um, right now, and it's never going to be published, what would you write?
I know people say this a lot, but I really would write the books that I write even if no one read them. It just brings me so much joy and fulfillment. So everything I write is for that reason.
Do you ever plan what your next project book is going to be, or is it something that's just going to land on the table like, oh, this is exactly what I want to write about?
Yeah, I have so many books in the pipeline I want to write, so I never feel like I run out because I'll be somewhere and I'll get a whole plot or an entire story, and I'm like, ah, but I want to work on this. And I have to be careful to stick with finishing the current project that I'm in instead of just jumping to the novelty of that invigorating feeling of first getting an idea. Because once you're in the middle of a book and there's problems with characters and plots, it's just so easy to abandon it and jump to the next thing. And I have to make sure that my like teenage Instagram brain doesn't kick in and I really stick with it.
A last question that I really wanted to ask you about writing books and the process of this is, I believe you have a manager and you have a publisher, so I believe you don't have 100% of the final decision, I would say. You have back and forth, right? How do you manage those back and forth? Because somehow you're being asked, maybe I'm wrong, I'm really asking that question, but maybe you're being asked to change sentences, words for some reasons. How do you manage that ego part of you?
I've been really fortunate with the people I've worked with. So I self-published my first poetry book and then sold it, but as it was. The fantasy book I did independent, so I had full creative control. And this book, Don't Wait to Light the Candles, was the first time that it's like with one of the big 5 publishers, and they are selecting the cover. We're going back and forth about the title. But I felt really fortunate because it's with Park Row, which is a group of women. And I felt like the editor had such great taste and she made it better. Like anything she pushed back on, I found she was right. Whether it was, hey, this poem repeats this one, or is this really what you mean? Or I feel like this title better encapsulates the essence of the book versus whatever kind of weird abstract title I wanted to do. And so the collaborative effort of having publishers and editors and all these fingerprints touch this book as it wound up being so much better. But I know that's not always the case for writers.
I love that. And I think I would have never really seen the structure or situation like this. And I love that you are actually feeling that it's actually adding up something to your work instead of restricting your own voice. I love that. Let's wrap and finish on that very last book that you've just released, Don't Wait to Light the Candles. Can you explain the title first? And also maybe talk to us a little bit more about the color of the book. So it's a beautiful red. I'm pretty sure there are reasons why you made those choices. Can you let us know a little bit about that process?
Yeah, Don't Wait to Light the Candles is a line from the first poem in that book. And for me, it's my response to the state of our world and how fast it is and how uncertain it is. And instead of despairing or being crippled by that, I want to celebrate every single beautiful thing in front of me because I genuinely don't know how long it will be in front of me for. And so it's my way of choosing to love instead of despair. In terms of it being red, that was very much the editor's suggestion, and she was completely right. When I see red, I think of aliveness and passion and celebration, and so it is that zest for living in a cover.
Can we finish just opening maybe randomly or maybe give you a number of a poem that you can read, or maybe you pick your favorite, whatever you feel most comfortable to do?
Give me a number.
Okay, I'm gonna pick my birthday. Let's do 19.
Take the silent prayers from my lips and return them to me in poetry. Reach through my skin and bones and touch that beating place where love and death and chaos meet. Feel the center of my sorrow, string it into a melody and give this world a symphony. On the days you feel better from swallowing life's cruelty, walk through the garden of my mind and taste the joyous honey of my memories. Let's not talk of tomorrow. There's too much beauty to look after.
It's a beautiful pick. I think it just sums up everything that we said. It was so beautiful. So it was all about presence and being connected to our inner world. And I love that. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom, for sharing your heart, and sharing your process with us on the podcast and to chat with you, because you've been such an inspiration to me for so long. So thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much. It's truly an honor, and I just love all of your insights and your presence and the way that you see the world, and I can just tell it's like you're finding beauty everywhere, and we need more of that.
That brings us to the end of this conversation with Allie. Over these 2 episodes, we explored the power of words, the intimacy of storytelling, the courage of being seen, and the connection between creativity, presence, and the body. What I loved most about this conversation is how deeply it reminds us that softness is not weakness. It is awareness, honesty, and connection. A huge thank you to Allie for sharing her heart and her creative world with so much openness and grace. If you'd like to dive deeper into Allie's writing, her latest poetry collection, Don't Wait to Light the Candles, is available now wherever books are sold. It's a beautiful and deeply human exploration of love, grief, healing, mindfulness, and learning to fully inhabit your life. You can also find Allie on Instagram and through a website for more of her writing and upcoming projects. All links are found in the descriptions of each episode. If this conversation moves something in you, feel free to share the podcast, leave a review, or send this episode to someone who may need these words right now. It truly helps support the show and allows this conversation to reach more people. Thank you for listening. Thank you for your presence. And I'll see you in the next episode.